All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Episode 1 for Season 2 of our Driver Career Mode. We are here with Aston Martin Honda. And kind of looking forward to it. But as you guys can tell, driver moves, yes, Esteban Ocon, so William, but let me explain those. I'm going to let you guys know, I tried to get the team name changer to work. And it's not working. Alfa Romeo is supposed to be Sauber, AlphaTauri is supposed to be Connor Sport, and Haas is supposed to be Alfa Romeo Haas. Just to let you guys know that. If you guys ever see the names properly later on in the series, I may have gotten it to work. I don't know if it's an update or something like that. But yeah, so we're not going to let that bother us too much in the series because we're not going to be looking too much behind the scenes. We're going to have it more cinematic throughout the season. And just a recap over our driver moves. Esteban Ocon to Williams, Valtteri Bottas to Alpine, replacing Ocon. Tsunoda over to Alfa Romeo, replacing Bottas. Mick Schumacher to Aston Martin. So yes, Alonso retired, and Mick Schumacher wanted to race this season. So once again, he's our teammate. Then we move to Aston Martin, replacing Stroll. And then there is Aiden Jackson down there. And Callie Mayer. So Aiden Jackson, Callie Mayer there for AlphaTauri for the entry of Connor Sport. And then Sauber with Yuki Tsunoda and Joe Granu preparing the entry to Audi Sports Sauber next season. So we're really looking forward to that. And as always, we're going to have a dry weekend here in Bahrain. So like before, like last season, we're going to go ahead and knock out practice, and we'll see you guys in qualifying. Alright guys, as we come into qualifying here, Season 2, Race 1 here in Bahrain, we're going to be doing some more commentary. I believe we did beginning of last season, or I believe we did in F122, as we get to take a look at our helmet and our outfit for Aston Martin Honda. Looking pretty good. Moving on to qualifying, we hit the apex really well, 122, and a little bit of oversteer. A little bit of understeer, I think it was, coming over those curbs as we set a 131.082 provisional P2 to start our qualifying one. That's going to be about our only good run for Q1, because only about 2/10 off the pace behind George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, our teammate Mick Schumacher, P11. Moving on to Q2, we missed the apex. We're about 3/10 back. And currently P7 in qualifying here in Q2. Hit the DRS, hit the timing line. Can be good enough for P4 through Q2. And yes, you could hear the V8 engines, or no, I believe it was the V10s. This time around, we're about 4/10 back behind the pace. George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, and myself, Mick Schumacher, our teammate, ending out back in P12. Now on to Q3. It's going to be our second run. Our previous run was a 130.4. We hit the apex really well. We didn't extend all the way out to the curb early on, but we're about 6/10 ahead of the pace, hitting the DRS. That's going to be good enough.
Fantastic, you've got pole position. We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid. Johnson, Norris, and George Russell. Goodbye for now then, but really we're just getting started. Make sure to join us again for Lights Out tomorrow. Months of rumour and speculation all come to an end today as we return to racing for the opening event of what promises to be an enthralling season. Welcome along then to round 1 of this year's Formula One World Championship. There's no shortage of passing opportunities around the 3.36 miles of the Bahrain International Circuit, with the best, of course, at turn 1, and then another soon after into turn 4. 15 corners here, 6 to the left and 9 to the right, and we could see 1 or 2 flat spots into that tight left-hander of turn 10. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Johnson lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Gasly, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Sainz, Bottas, Leclerc, Mick Schumacher, Hulkenberg, Jackson, Ocon, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Sargent, Joe, and Kalimea. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. A new season then, a clean slate where anything could happen. Anthony Davidson is with me today as once again we get another year of Formula One underway.
We're into those tense few minutes before the first race then. Everyone's a little bit nervous about reliability. They haven't been running in the hot, turbulent wake of other cars in practice. And they've not been pushing at 100% for long durations. Let's hope no one has to deal with any nasty surprises.
All right, so here we are, season 1, start of the season, and we're in P1 next to Lando Norris, so we're feeling pretty good. I have it listed in the description, a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm trying to adjust the difficulty of every race to be as accurate as possible, so I was feeling pretty good about the difficulty that I had set with the P4 for Q1 and Q2, and then I feel like I ran a little bit slightly better than Q2, and it bumped me up to Q1 instead of Q1 or P1 instead of P4. So just remember that each of these races, I'm trying to accurately adjust the difficulty according to the track, and of course, Bahrain being the first race of the season, it's going to be the most difficult to adjust. So hopefully next season we will have a better outcome on difficulty when we get to it. So let's get to the race.
So as the formation lap gets underway here for the first time this season, each driver will be wanting to make an impactful start to their season by earning those crucial points and getting a confidence booster right from the off. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
There are the possible race strategies, and we're actually going to be doing a 10 and 10. We're going to be doing 10 on the hards, 10 on the mediums. This formation lap would be a little bit longer if we weren't on the front of the grid, but Lando Norris is side by side with us on the hards. And the Mercedes, I believe that was Russell and then Hamilton on the softs. And then we have the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, I believe, behind. You see the two yellow cars on the right side there of Connor Sport, of Kalimea and Aiden Jackson. We're really looking forward to seeing what they can do. Our 3, 4, and 5 red lights are on, and they are off. We're hitting a lot on our red line. We went high in the revs. A little bit less of a launch than I expected, though. The Lando Norris have the inside 2x2 with the front 2 rows. The next 3 rows are 3x3 coming through turn 1. Very risky, as we managed to get ahead of Lando Norris, 3/10 ahead, as we're coming through this first straight with nothing but clean air ahead of us, as Max Verstappen tries to make a move on George Russell there in the Mercedes. Coming down this hill, you can see that this fog really started to bug me. So coming down the S-curve, Lando Norris tries to make a move. You can see me in the mirror on the left side as he tries to make an overcut, or not an overcut, a switchback. As you can see, Max Verstappen trying to make a move on Lando Norris, staying in his toe. We ended up missing our braking point there in turn 10. Lando Norris taking the lead. We have about the same pace. We have a little bit more pace, but as soon as he gets on the gas, gets up in those gears, he can stay ahead. Swapping over to our new perspective, we changed the camera settings for the TV pod offset for more of a cinematic rather than competitive. You saw that we had a little bit of snap of oversteer there in that uphill section. We're going to be getting that a lot as we now hit the back straight as we round up the end of the lap. Lando Norris ahead, second half of the lap. You can see how much fog there is. We're basically going to make sure that we get the fog removal mods on race department for these night races, as Lando Norris seems to take off a little bit on us, but we try to stay in his toe and stay with him as best as possible as we start lap 2. And we're going to end up braking late, almost coming in contact, and make a move on the inside. We're going to make a move for that P1 position. And Hamilton's trying to fight for a position against Verstappen there in P3, P4. You can see them switching back and forth. And we're moving on to lap 3, the start of lap 3. So 1 lap later, Lando Norris is able to make the same exact move a little bit sooner. He has the inside now. We have the outside, and it's going to happen a lot throughout this race. We give that position to him, and I thought we were going to get DRS, but Lando Norris gets the timing line first. We don't get DRS, but we have the pace. He's sitting at DRS, and we have the toe from him. We push him to the inside lane there as we're at the top of the hill. And we follow him as close as possible through the S's. Max Verstappen staying ahead of Hamilton as we're coming down the hill. You can see the pace that some of these cars have between each other. Aiden Jackson back in P15, teammate Callie Mayer back in P19, and Schumacher only losing 1 position so far from this race as we're hitting that apex there in turn 10. We're doing a lot better than we did. Snap of oversteer trying to get on the grass as Max Verstappen, the pace is about half a second between the top 3. Hamilton and Russell still about the same as we're hitting that uphill section again. That snap of oversteer again, and that second snap of oversteer. It's really what loses our pace against Lando Norris as of yet. Max Verstappen, start of lap 4, able to make a move on us for P3. And we're not going to give up quite yet. We're going to be holding that outside line, trying to keep as much pace as we can as we hold off for now against Max Verstappen for P2. Let's see how close he is behind, about 3/10. Now, moving on to lap 5, we try to make another move on Lando Norris. We have the pace, we have the DRS, we hold the outside line. He backs off, we end up going wide, missing our braking point. There was a little bit of snap of oversteer there, and we had to overcorrect. Try not to come in contact with Lando Norris. Luckily, we didn't. Lando Norris back in P2, Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell all closely together. As we only got like 15, 16 laps to go. So many position changes. And it's just the very beginning of the race. Lap 7, Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton both together. Hamilton made a move on Verstappen the last lap, and they're both trying to make a move, making us go 3 wide into turn 1. There's some contact between Norris and Hamilton, and we're trying to squeeze through. We try to make our move. We didn't want to take too much curb and damage the underbelly of the car, so we ended up giving way to both of them. And that was going to be a mistake in the long run, as once again we miss our braking point and end up going out wide. That was our first warning for track limits, I believe, as we're coming through the S's. Trying to fight for a position against Lando Norris, lap 7. It's Lewis Hamilton. Through all that fighting from that sector 1 scene, he's already a second ahead. And halfway through lap 7. Moving on to lap 8 now, we're going to be paying attention to Valtteri Bottas in the Alpine. He's going to be coming through behind Sergio Perez, and he's going to be retiring the car. He's going to be going slow. You can see that gap as you can see hear his engine as he takes out that DRS board, having to retire the car for what I'm guessing is an engine failure. And that's going to be pulling the first virtual safety car of the season. And end of lap 9, we're going to be coming in. So at this point, the virtual safety car was still up. But yeah, so basically as everybody was coming into the pits, the virtual safety car ended because of how Bottas came off the track. We're going to be swapping over to our mediums on lap 10. 10 laps to go. We're back in P11 as of right now, coming through the exit of the pits. Hamilton, Sainz, Perez, Piastri. So myself, Norris, Verstappen, Russell, we have all pitted off of those tires onto, I believe we're all on mediums, if I am correct, as we have some good pace. So the track is pretty much widespread, and we're halfway done with this race, and we basically have to nurse these mediums all the way to the end of the race. And at the end of this lap, we're going to see all those other position changes. Everybody else that didn't come into the pits the previous lap will, except for Lewis Hamilton and Logan Sargent, our previous teammate Logan Sargent, staying out on softs on lap 11 as we get a big snap of oversteer there. Lando Norris trying to close in as he gets the DRS. You can see him in the mirror making a move on us as Lewis Hamilton, about 4 seconds gap between Hamilton and Sargent, but Sargent's most likely to be coming in the end of this lap as me and Norris are side by side momentarily as we brake late on him coming through sector 2, and towards the end of lap 11 he makes another move, and we basically give him that position. We hit the brakes a little bit too much than we should, as yeah, Sargent's in the pits at the end of the lap. Hamilton's ahead, Norris P2, and myself P3. That leaves about 1.8 seconds between myself and Verstappen and Russell, as we try to stay as close as we can to Lando Norris. And as we're coming through these last 10 laps, these mediums really acted differently than what we were able to use with the hards. Lando Norris, not really much fight there as we make a move on the inside. Side by side, lap 14. As we're back up into P2, but Hamilton now 3.7 seconds ahead of P2. And Lando Norris is within DRS. Moving on to lap 15 now, Lando Norris 2/10 back, Russell 1.3 seconds back, Verstappen 3.7. We push Norris wide as best as we can, but he has the momentum through this last corner. We have the DRS, and I believe it's a yellow flag behind us. And it's going to look like it's Perez. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. So it's going to be Alpine in the Red Bull. Lap 16, fight with Norris. That yellow flag isn't really affecting us as it's behind us. As you can see, Sergio Perez dropping down the order one person at a time. Our teammate Mick Schumacher back up into P11 now. Position gain of 1 so far this race for the first race of the season. And first race for a few years for Schumacher. As we're going to be settling in a P3. Here's that perspective from Sergio Perez coming around the last corner. He hits the apex good, but I thought it was going to be oversteer, but he just has to retire the car. Like, there's not really any signs of engine failure. There wasn't any smoke, but he's going to have to retire the car on the main straight. And yeah, so the fight still continues between myself and Norris. With Sergio Perez out, that remains to be 18 drivers left for this debut of the season. And you can see George Russell at this point with that yellow flag. He's catching up, so we're trying to stay in the toe of Lando Norris a little bit, trying not to come in contact with him. Push down on the brakes a little bit too much for this back straight. George Russell, you can see that his time, you can see him in the mirror trying to make a move on the inside, and we give him that space. We're side by side through the last few corners. And look who it is, Max Verstappen closing in behind as we swap over to George Russell, making that easy move on those mediums with DRS. Dropping us back to P4 and defend ourselves against Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen on the outside of turn 1 as we try to stay in the toe of George Russell. We're now back to P4. Verstappen is still trying to close in, but he ends up losing ground as we're so close to the end of the race. So a lot of the drivers are going to be feeling these medium tires and having to nurse these tires the rest of the way, as Logan Sargent loses a position against Gran Joe back in P14, P15. Schumacher P11. We're fighting. We ended up going 3 wide into the back straight out of sector 1. And yeah, it was myself, Russell, and Norris. And a very risky, very close call on our part as we try to make a move on George Russell. But at this point, lap 18, about 2.5 laps to go. We're trying to not make any contact as best as we can. You can see Hamilton now 10 seconds, just under 10 seconds. 9.9 seconds. There's a 10-second gap here as we hit that left-hander turn. 10-second gap. George Russell has DRS, is able to make the advancement on us. And that's pretty much going to sell it, because lap 18, we try to hold off George Russell. This is when he's able to make that final move. Hamilton now 11 seconds ahead. George Russell. And at this point, I basically said I need to defend against Norris as best as I can and hold this podium spot, because having a podium spot at the beginning of the season would help my case with Aston Martin, as that's basically how it's going to be for the remainder of this race lap and a half as we tail behind George Russell as best as possible for a P3 finish.
Well done, mate. Well done. That's a great finish. You've really stepped up and achieved what we asked you to do today, so good job.
That's a fantastic team effort then to secure victory here in the desert. After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Some amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Well, for me, it's got to be Lewis Hamilton. The multiple world champion may be the boring choice at this point, but you can't argue that he's a driver deserving of his reputation.
It's time to check out the Constructors' standings. Mercedes move to the top of the table. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
All right, so there we have it. A very interesting and challenging first race of the season. Like I said at the beginning of the race, trying to fine-tune the difficulty settings. And that was plenty difficult for me to try to keep up with Lando Norris, George Russell, and Lewis Hamilton. As soon as he got ahead of us on the overcut, he just went away. He was 12. You could see that he was 12 seconds ahead of myself, George Russell, Lando Norris, and we tried to get ahead of George Russell there at the end, but we basically decided we needed to push enough, but not enough to have Lando Norris make a mistake and have Lando Norris take P3, take that podium from us. But yes, it was a good podium for us at the beginning of the season. Aston Martin giving us our first podium of the season in the car, and Mick Schumacher getting his first points of the season as well. They're in top 10, knocking out Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Aiden Jackson in the Connor Sport, AlphaTauri. Connor Sport, P13, Logan Sargent, P14, a good improvement from P18. Esteban Ocon, Joe Granu, Yuki Tsunoda, and Callie Mayer, Sergio Perez, and Valtteri Bottas. DNS today. No full yellow flags, but we did have yellow flags there in Sector 1 and I believe Sector 2 for Sergio Perez, if not Sector 3 to Sector 1 for engine failure. So it's very unfortunate for those two. And now we'll have to wait and see what happens next week as we hit Saudi Arabia for Jeddah. So we're looking forward to that. We had some trouble last season, but I'm kind of looking forward to getting there in the next episode. So there we are, our first race in season 2 at Aston Martin Honda. We get P3 from P1, so a good finish, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.